Iran believed its air defense network was impenetrable, a fortress of Russian S-300 systems and domestically produced Bavar 373 batteries, protecting every strategic asset from the Persian Gulf to the Caspian Sea. However, on March 9, 2026, Israeli F-35 Ayadea stealth fighters penetrated Iranian airspace completely undetected and destroyed the Natanz enrichment facility's backup power infrastructure in an operation lasting exactly 17 minutes. The strike was not launched from Israeli territory. It was not launched from any known Allied base in the region. The aircraft that pulverized one of Iran's most protected facilities took off from a location that fundamentally rewrites Middle Eastern strategic calculations. This single operation has collapsed decades of Iranian defensive planning and exposed a vulnerability so severe that Tehran now faces an impossible choice between nuclear program acceleration, regime survival. The images you are about to see on your screens will show you the most significant shift in Middle Eastern military balance since Operation Desert Storm. What you see is not just destroyed infrastructure. It is the visual proof that Israel has achieved what military analysts considered operationally impossible. The footage shows precision-guided munitions striking hardened underground facilities with accuracy measured in centimeters, not meters. In the images that will appear on your screen shortly, you will witness the moment Iran's strategic depth evaporated. But that is not the most shocking detail. There are three factors that enabled this operation, and each one represents a separate strategic earthquake. We will explain these factors in the later parts of this video. Now we must look at how this all began. On the night of March 9, 2026, at approximately 2:47 local time, Israeli Air Force F-35 Ayadea aircraft conducted a coordinated strike against the Natanz nuclear enrichment facility located in Isfahan province, central Iran. The target was not the primary enrichment halls, which remain buried under reinforced concrete and earth. Instead, Israeli planners identified the facility's critical vulnerability. Every underground enrichment cascade requires massive electrical power and sophisticated cooling systems. The backup generators and transformer stations that provide redundancy when the main power grid fails were constructed above ground in hardened bunkers considered adequate against conventional attack. According to reports from the Institute for the Study of War, the strike destroyed 4 primary backup generator facilities and 6 transformer stations in a synchronized attack, lasting less than 20 minutes from first weapon release to last aircraft departure from Iranian airspace. The precision was extraordinary. Each munition struck within 3 meters of its designated impact point, despite targeting structures protected by multiple layers of air defense coverage. The Israeli aircraft employed a weapons combination specifically designed for this mission profile. The F-35I carries internally mounted GBU-53 Stormbreaker small-diameter bombs, weapons weighing only 250 pounds, but equipped with tri-mode seekers combining millimeter-wave radar, uncooled imaging, infrared, and semi-active laser guidance. This tri-mode capability allows the weapon to prosecute targets in all weather conditions and defeat sophisticated electronic countermeasures. Each F-35I can carry 8 Stormbreaker munitions internally, while maintaining full stealth profile. The attack package consisted of 12 F-35I aircraft, meaning 96 precision munitions were available for target engagement. According to preliminary data released by Israeli defense sources, 82 weapons were released and 79 achieved direct hits on designated aim points. This represents a success rate exceeding 96% against a heavily defended strategic target deep inside hostile territory. The Iranian air defense network surrounding Natanz includes Russian-supplied S-300 PMU-2 systems with engagement ranges exceeding 200 kilometers, domestically produced Bavar 373 systems modeled on the Russian S-400 design, Khordad-15 medium-range systems specifically designed to counter stealth aircraft, and layered short-range Tor M1 and Pantsir S-1 defense systems. On paper, this integrated air defense system creates overlapping engagement zones that should detect and engage any aerial threat. The reality documented by this operation is that the F-35's stealth characteristics, combined with sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities and careful mission planning, rendered this defensive network effectively blind. Iranian radar operators reported no airborne contacts during the attack window. The first indication of hostile activity came from ground observers reporting explosions at Natanz, not from air defense early warning systems. This tactical success unlocks strategic implications that extend far beyond the immediate damage assessment. The strike demonstrates that Israel possesses both the capability and operational willingness to conduct deep strikes against Iranian nuclear infrastructure without requiring overflight of multiple nations or extended aerial refueling operations that would be vulnerable to detection and interdiction. The destruction of backup power systems does not halt enrichment operations immediately. The primary electrical grid continues to supply power to the underground cascades. However, the loss of redundancy creates an operational vulnerability. If the main power supply experiences any interruption, whether through technical failure, sabotage, or subsequent military action, the enrichment cascades will shut down automatically. Restarting these systems requires weeks of careful recalibration. Any uncontrolled shutdown risks damaging the thousands of centrifuges that separate uranium isotopes. The Iranian nuclear program just lost its safety margin. The operational tempo implications are severe. Iran now faces a compressed decision timeline. The regime can attempt to accelerate enrichment to weapons-grade levels before Israel conducts follow-on strikes against additional nuclear infrastructure. This acceleration would provide clear justification for expanded Israeli military action and potentially trigger direct EU intervention. Alternatively, Iran can accept that its nuclear program now operates without the defensive depth previously assumed, fundamentally altering the strategic calculation of how close to weaponization the program can proceed before triggering an Israeli response. According to German intelligence reports cited by Der Spiegel, Iranian decision-makers are engaged in intense internal debates over these competing approaches. The Supreme National Security Council has convened emergency sessions daily since the March 9th strike. Now we must address the question that transforms this tactical success into strategic revolution. Where did these aircraft launch from? Israeli F-35I combat radius with internal fuel load is approximately 1,100 kilometers. Natanz sits roughly 1,600 kilometers from Israeli airspace. Traditional analysis assumed Israeli strike packages would require aerial refueling over hostile or contested airspace, creating vulnerability and limiting operational flexibility. The answer to this riddle emerged on March 12, when Saudi Arabian officials quietly confirmed to select Western diplomats what Israeli intelligence had already revealed through operational success. The F-35I strike package launched from Prince Sultan Air Base located south of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This revelation represents the most significant shift in Middle Eastern alliance structures since the Camp David Accords normalized Egyptian-Israeli relations. Saudi Arabia and Israel have no formal diplomatic relations. The kingdom does not officially recognize the State of Israel. Yet Saudi military facilities just provided the launch platform for an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear program. The implications cascade through every dimension of regional geopolitics. Saudi Arabia has effectively chosen sides in the fundamental regional power competition between Tehran and Jerusalem. The strike could not have occurred without Saudi approval, cooperation, and likely active assistance in mission planning and intelligence sharing. Prince Sultan Air Base houses sophisticated radar systems that would have detected the Israeli aircraft during takeoff and recovery. Saudi air defense networks would have tracked the mission profile. The cooperation was not passive acquiescence, but active partnership. The strategic logic driving Saudi decision-making is brutally clear. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has concluded that Iranian nuclear weapons capability represents an existential threat to Saudi interests that supersedes any symbolic value of maintaining official hostility toward Israel. A nuclear-armed Iran would dominate the Persian Gulf, dictate regional energy policy, and potentially coerce Saudi Arabia into accepting Iranian strategic leadership. From Riyadh's perspective, enabling Israeli military action that degrades Iranian nuclear progress serves fundamental Saudi national interests, regardless of the diplomatic costs or religious political complications. The Abraham Accords normalized relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. This operation reveals that Saudi Arabia has moved beyond normalization toward active military cooperation against shared adversaries. The geopolitical earthquake extends beyond bilateral Saudi-Israeli relations. The operation demonstrates that Israel now possesses strategic depth that fundamentally alters the military balance across the entire region. With access to Saudi basing, Israeli strike aircraft can reach any target in Iran, with sufficient payload and fuel reserves to conduct complex missions without relying on vulnerable aerial refueling operations. Tehran is now 90 flight minutes from Israeli F-35I aircraft operating from Saudi territory. This compresses Iranian decision cycles and eliminates the geographic buffer that previously provided warning time and diplomatic maneuvering space. The entire Iranian nuclear program, previously protected by distance and air defense networks, is now exposed to precision attack with minimal warning. The human dimension of this crisis manifests in the impossible choices facing ordinary Iranians caught between regime ambition and national survival. Iranian nuclear scientists and facility personnel understand that their workplaces have become primary military targets. The families of these individuals now live with the knowledge that their loved ones report daily to facilities that Israel has demonstrated the capability and willingness to strike. Internal Iranian security services have reportedly increased surveillance of nuclear program personnel, fearing that some may seek to leave the program or even provide intelligence to foreign services. The pressure on these individuals is immense. They face danger from Israeli strikes if they remain in their positions and potential accusations of treason if they attempt to leave sensitive programs. Iranian political leadership faces equally impossible calculations. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has invested tremendous political capital in the nuclear program as demonstration of Iranian technological achievement and resistance to Western pressure. Backing down now would represent humiliating strategic defeat. Yet continuing enrichment acceleration invites further Israeli strikes that could destroy not just nuclear infrastructure, but also the electrical grid, petroleum refinement capacity, and transportation networks that sustain the Iranian economy. The Iranian population, already suffering under international sanctions and mismanagement, faces the prospect of sustained Israeli military campaign that would devastate living standards while the regime pursues nuclear weapons that may never be successfully deployed. The next 6 months will determine whether this crisis escalates toward regional war or produces unexpected diplomatic breakthrough. Israeli Prime Minister's recent statements, carefully parsed by intelligence analysts, suggest Jerusalem is prepared to conduct sustained military campaign against Iranian nuclear infrastructure if enrichment continues. The phrase used in closed briefings to allied governments is calculated ambiguity. Israel will not specify the exact threshold that would trigger expanded strikes, forcing Iran to operate under assumption that any continued enrichment risks immediate attack. This strategic uncertainty is designed to paralyze Iranian decision-making while Israel prepares additional operational options. Iranian options for response are constrained by military reality and political calculation. Direct retaliation against Israel would likely prove ineffective given the qualitative superiority of Israeli air defenses and invite escalated strikes that could target regime leadership direct. Proxy attacks through Hezbollah in Lebanon or militias in Iraq and Syria would provide deniable retaliation, but risk triggering Israeli ground operations that could devastate these proxy forces. Iran could attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil supplies transit. But such action would bring immediate U.S. military intervention that would likely destroy Iranian naval and air capabilities within days. Every retaliatory option carries costs that potentially exceed any achievable benefit. The most likely Iranian response may be acceleration toward nuclear breakout in the calculation that achieving weapons capability provides deterrence against further strikes. This logic assumes Israel will not risk striking facilities that might already contain weapons-grade material or assembled devices. However, this assumption may prove catastrophically wrong. Israeli intelligence maintains extensive penetration of Iranian nuclear program through human sources, cyber operations, and technical surveillance. If Israel gains intelligence that Iran is moving toward weaponization, the response will likely be immediate and comprehensive strikes against all nuclear facilities, regardless of their operational status. The window for diplomacy is measured in weeks, not months. Meanwhile, the Saudi decision to cooperate with Israel creates its own cascade of regional consequences. Other Gulf states now face pressure to choose between Iranian threats and Israeli security cooperation. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, already normalized with Israel through Abraham Accords, will likely expand intelligence sharing and potential military cooperation. Oman, which has maintained careful neutrality, now faces Iranian pressure to deny any access or cooperation with Israeli operations. Qatar, which houses both a major U.S. military base and maintains dialogue with Iran, finds itself caught between incompatible positions. The regional order that existed for decades, with Arab states maintaining formal rejection of Israel despite shared interests against Iran, has collapsed. The new order is taking shape through military operations rather than diplomatic negotiations. The global implications extend to the fundamental question of nuclear non-proliferation. If Iran achieves nuclear weapons despite international sanctions and military strikes, every regional power will conclude that nuclear weapons provide ultimate security guarantee that no conventional military superiority can overcome. Saudi Arabia has previously indicated it would seek nuclear weapons if Iran achieves them. Turkey would likely follow. Egypt might reconsider its non-nuclear status. The Middle East could face proliferation cascade that would make the region permanently unstable and create multiple nuclear flashpoints where currently only Israel possesses such weapons. The United States finds itself managing contradictory interests. Washington opposes Iranian nuclear weapons and generally supports Israeli security. However, expanded Israeli-Saudi military cooperation occurred without extensive EU coordination and creates pressure on American decision-makers to either endorse actions taken without consultation or risk appearing to undermine allied operations against shared adversary. The Biden administration has reportedly expressed private frustration with both Israeli and Saudi governments for conducting operation of this significance without advance coordination through established military-to-military channels. Yet public U.S. response has been muted, recognizing that criticizing the operation would provide propaganda victory to Iran and undermine the very non-proliferation goals U.S. policy seeks to advance. European powers face even more complex calculations. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom invested years in negotiating the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was supposed to constrain Iranian nuclear development through diplomacy and verification, rather than military action. The Israeli strike represents explicit rejection of diplomatic approaches in favor of unilateral military action. European governments must now decide whether to condemn Israeli actions as violations of international law and Iranian sovereignty, or quietly acknowledge that diplomatic efforts have failed and military pressure may be the only remaining option to prevent Iranian nuclear weapons. The internal European debates reveal fundamental divisions between those who prioritize legal frameworks and diplomatic processes versus those who focus on practical outcomes regardless of methods employed. The operation has also exposed Russian and Chinese positions on Iranian nuclear development. Neither Moscow nor Beijing has condemned the Israeli strike with any meaningful force. Russian statements emphasize the need for all parties to show restraint, a far cry from the aggressive condemnation that would be expected if Russia genuinely opposed Israeli military action against a partner nation. Chinese responses have been even more tepid, with foreign ministry spokespersons offering boilerplate calls for dialogue without specifically criticizing Israeli operations. This muted response from Iran's supposed great power partners reveals that neither Russia nor China wishes to expend political capital defending Iranian nuclear ambitions. Both nations benefit from Iranian oil sales and strategic partnership, but neither wants to see a nuclear-armed Iran that would complicate their own regional interests and potentially trigger proliferation they cannot control. Tehran now confronts the reality that it stands strategically isolated at the moment of maximum vulnerability. The air defense systems purchased from Russia failed to detect or engage Israeli aircraft. The political support expected from China and Russia evaporated when confronted with operational reality. The geographic depth that was supposed to protect Iranian nuclear facilities has been eliminated through Saudi-Israeli cooperation. The regime must now choose between abandoning the nuclear program that has consumed billions of dollars and immense political capital, or persisting toward weaponization while Israeli strike aircraft sit 90 minutes away on Saudi runways, fueled and ready for immediate launch. The coming weeks will reveal whether Iran's leadership possesses the strategic wisdom to step back from the precipice, or whether ideological commitment to nuclear capability will drive the regime toward catastrophic miscalculation. History suggests that authoritarian governments often choose escalation over accommodation when faced with threats to core programs, even when the rational cost-benefit analysis clearly favors de-escalation. The psychological investment in the nuclear program as symbol of Iranian technological achievement and resistance to Western pressure may prove impossible to abandon regardless of military realities. What are your thoughts on this unprecedented shift in Middle Eastern strategic balance? Do you think Saudi-Israeli cooperation will expand beyond this single operation? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our video. The operation that placed Israeli strike aircraft 90 minutes from Tehran represents more than tactical success. It represents the moment when Iran's nuclear ambitions collided with the combined capabilities of regional powers who have concluded that preventing Iranian weaponization justifies unprecedented cooperation. The fortress Iran built to protect its nuclear program just discovered that the walls face the wrong direction. The threat is no longer distant, it is already inside the perimeter, fueled and armed, waiting for the next enrichment report that crosses the threshold from concern to action. Presented by TGN. Thank you for choosing us.